March 23, 1944, 22,000 feet over Germany. The roar of the B-17's engines fills the air, a constant hum that vibrates the fuselage beneath the men who sit in their stations. The aircraft moves through the cold, crisp sky, a jagged silhouette against the pale blue of the morning. Below, the landscape sprawls out, a patchwork of fields and forests, now a battlefield scarred by war. Inside, it's chaos. The fuselage shakes violently as a blast rips through the aircraft. A wave of pressure knocks the air out of the men as the lights flicker and the walls groan under the strain. The screaming alarm cuts through the roar of the engines, warning of a fire in the left wing. The gunners in the belly turret and nose turret are already down. One is unconscious, the other lifeless. Blood pools beneath them as the crew's faces flash in a mix of shock, panic, and terror. In the cockpit, the pilot's hands fly over the controls, trying to steady the aircraft as the co-pilot frantically calls out for help. The gunner in the tail turret is also gone, his body now just another casualty of the brutal onslaught from the enemy fighters. But one remains. One man, frozen in the bitter cold, still has a heartbeat. A single B-17 gunner, struggling to keep his eyes open against the pain of his wounds, the blood trickling from his temple, but somehow still alive. His name is Sergeant Charles "Chuck" McKinley, a 23-year-old airman from Oklahoma. The crew had been flying their 12th mission over Germany, a raid against a Luftwaffe airfield. It had gone wrong from the start. The B-17 was a fortress, but even fortresses had weak points. The Germans had learned that, and now, as the B-17 limps through the sky, McKinley can feel the weight of his comrades' deaths press down on him. He's alone. His hands grip the gunner's controls, knuckles white. His right shoulder is shattered, and his head swims with pain, but his training, his purpose, anchors him to reality. The German fighters, Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs, are still out there, circling, waiting for another opening. But it doesn't matter. He's not letting this bird go down, not today. Stay with it, stay with it. The words are barely a whisper through his cracked lips, the icy wind cutting into him. His breath fogs up the tiny cockpit window. Outside, the sky is a brilliant blue, but that beauty is a lie. This is a battlefield. He switches to the tail gunner turret and grabs the handles. The cold metal bites into his palms, but it's a sensation that sharpens his focus. A crack of gunfire cuts through the air, followed by another explosion. The B-17 shakes, pitching downward. He can feel the pull of gravity, the weight of the aircraft's damage, dragging it lower. The radio crackles, but the voice on the other end is too far gone to make any sense of. Mayday, mayday. McKinley curses under his breath. The crew is gone. There's no help coming, not for him, not for anyone. He switches to the upper turret next. He shifts his weight, dragging himself across the floor, ignoring the pain shooting through his ribs. His feet slip on the blood-soaked floor. He stumbles, but catches himself just before he collapses. There's no time for that. With trembling hands, McKinley adjusts the turret's aim, targeting the incoming fighter. The roar of his machine gun fills the cramped space. His pulse quickens. Every shot is an echo in the air. He's not just fighting for his life. He's fighting for the souls of the men who died beside him. For a moment, the world narrows. The aircraft is alive beneath him, its body twisting, groaning in protest, as the German fighters dart in and out of range, looking for an opening. The B-17 takes another hit. McKinley hears the tear of metal, the screeching of the engine. He grits his teeth, refusing to let the pain stop him. His vision blurs, but he stays focused. Another enemy fighter approaches, but this time he's ready. He lines up his sights, squeezing the trigger. The air around the fighter erupts in sparks as the bullets tear through its wings. The aircraft veers off, but there's no time to celebrate. There's only the next one coming. The sky is filled with enemy fighters now, diving and swooping around the stricken bomber, like vultures circling their prey. McKinley can feel the weight of history pressing down on him. The men who died, the plane that fought to stay in the air, the lives hanging by a thread. But for all the noise, all the terror, there's one moment of clarity. In the middle of the chaos, There's just the cold, the engine's roar, the crack of his guns, and his heartbeat, strong, steady. The tail gunner turret is useless now. The controls are shot. The left wing is leaking fuel. The right engine is sputtering. The cockpit is barely holding together, but the plane stays in the air. And McKinley stays with it. The fighters keep coming. Every pass feels like the last, but he doesn't falter. He doesn't give in. The B-17's wings are beginning to tear. The fuselage is battered, and yet the fortress holds. At 22,000 feet over enemy territory, it's a miracle the plane is even still airborne. But McKinley holds the aircraft steady. Hours pass, how many he doesn't know. Time is a blur of metal, smoke, fire, and blood. The only thing that matters is the next shot, the next target, and keeping the plane flying. And then finally, a glimmer of hope. In the distance, a streak of blue British fighter planes. The Spitfires swoop in, clearing the skis of the German attackers. For a brief moment, the world goes silent. But McKinley isn't celebrating. He's too tired, too broken. His body aches with exhaustion, but there's still work to do, still one task left. He fires off a final round from the nose turret before dragging himself to the cockpit. With a final effort, he wrestles the controls into position, getting the B-17 to a nearby airfield. The landing gear is compromised, the plane's left wing barely functional. But somehow, with McKinley's hands shaking on the controls, the B-17 touches down, skimming across the runway before finally coming to a halt, its engines sputtering and coughing as it gives its last breath. McKinley stumbles from his seat, his legs giving out as he collapses against the side of the aircraft. Blood drips from his wounds, his face a mess of grime and sweat. His eyes are heavy, but he forces them open, looking out over the field where a team of medics is already running toward him. He doesn't remember when he passed out. He doesn't remember the moment when he finally let go of the plane's controls. But he remembers the men he couldn't save. He remembers the fight, the impossible fight that kept the bomber in the sky long enough for a miracle to happen. And as the medics rush in, lifting him off the ground, Chuck McKinley smiles for the first time in hours, knowing that he did it. He kept them in the air. He fought alone. And for that, the world would never forget him. Before we go further, make sure you're subscribed. We share incredible true war stories every day. The story of Sergeant Charles McKinley isn't just one of survival. It's a story of humanity's will to persevere in the face of overwhelming odds. In the end, it wasn't just the bomber that landed. It was McKinley's indomitable spirit that guided it safely to Earth. The world knew of the B-17 crews, the heroic pilots, the gunners who fought side by side. But few knew of the lone gunner who, through sheer will, kept an entire bomber alive long enough for the miracle to happen. This was a man who, in the midst of death, chose to fight. And it was that fight that became the difference between life and death. We tell stories like this every day. Subscribe and stay ready for the next one.